Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice for radio, so today we are answering the question which has been plaguing Pokemon enthusiasts since the beginning of Pokemon itself. By which I actually mean gold or silver. You'll see why in a second. Who's better, Umbreon or Espeon? Because they didn't actually get introduced until gold and silver. Now, if we're looking from a coolness design point, Umbreon, quite clearly. If we're looking at Pokken Tournament, I'm going to have to go for Espeon at the moment. But in this video, ladies and gentlemen, we are focusing specifically on the Pokemon trading card game. And at the moment, they're actually both pretty good. Now, Espeon is the one that we're more accustomed to using, so let's start off with Umbreon. Although before we go to either of them, let's have a quick reminder of the Sun and Moon Eevee with the brilliant Energy Evolution ability. When you attach a basic energy to Eevee, you get to search your deck for a Pokemon of the same type as the basic energy you just attached, and evolve Eevee into said Pokemon. So, for instance, you can attach a Dark Energy and immediately evolve up into Umbreon GX. Now, Umbreon GX has got good attacks. Strafe does 30 damage and you can switch to your bench. And remember, this is a turn 1 attack, because you attach the Dark to Eevee, evolve up, and then immediately Strafe to do 30 damage. And then you add a double colourless energy, you can Shadow Bullet doing 90 damage to the active, 30 damage to the bench. It's Night Spear for a new generation. Now, the GX attack I quite like, Dark Cool GX. Discard 2 energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon. Any energy you like from anywhere on the field, used at the right time, can mean your opponent does not have the resources to end the game. So Umbreon, pretty gosh darned nice. But of course, Umbreon is not a dude who takes big one-hit KOs. Umbreon is a dude who spreads damage around. And this is what got me thinking about Umbreon versus Espeon, because when you're spreading damage around, what you really want to do is bring in an Espeon EX, use Miraculous Shine for 1 colourless energy, and then it devolves all of your opponent's Pokemon by a single stage. So let's say, for argument's sake, that you hit a Metagross for 90 damage using Umbreon. Will you then bring in Espeon EX, and even if it was evolved up manually, even if it evolved from a Metang, rather than just using a rare candy, you're going to be getting a KO here, because Metang only has 90 HP. So it would get immediately KO'd. Now, it's not just one attack from Umbreon, and then you devolve them all, but if you do this attack enough, spread enough damage around the field, then all of a sudden you can KO multiples of them. What about if you do 30 damage to a Metagross that evolved using a rare candy? And then let's say you do another 30 damage to that Metagross that evolved using a rare candy. You then devolve it down to a Beldum, because there is no Metang, it would go straight down to a Beldum. All of a sudden that Beldum has 60 damage on it and will actually be KO'd. That is the goal with Umbreon. And if you're making an Umbreon deck at the moment, this seems to be the best way to do it. You spread a whole bunch of damage around using Umbreon GX's main attack, Shadow Bullet, and then you really want to devolve them, and the best way to devolve them is using Espeon EX. Though, as a side note, if you don't want to use Espeon EX, you can use my boy Porygon Z, who's got the same effect, but instead of being an attack for a colourless energy, it is just an ability. The thing is, do you need to do this with Umbreon? Or could you actually do this better with Espeon? And if you want to spread damage around the field at the moment, you cannot do very much better than Espeon GX's Divide GX. Put 10 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. You just spread a whole bunch of damage counters around up to 10. Well, exactly 10 in fact. And the other attacks are not so good for spreading damage. Psybeam 1 Psychic Energy. Remember, you attach a Psychic to Eevee, evolve it up, and then use it straight away. 30 damage plus Confusion. And then Psychic is 60 plus 30 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon, which does do a whole bunch of damage. And then Divide comes in and spreads the damage where it needs to go. In terms of spreading damage around to all of your opponent's Pokemon, I think Umbreon has the edge here. I think using Shadow Bullet is a better way to spread damage around than using Espeon GX. Because although I adore Divide, and I absolutely do, the other attacks are very much just hitting the active. But then, of course, no matter who you're using, Espeon or Umbreon GX, you're really probably going to be using Espeon EX to come in there and actually get the devolving going. Now, there is an argument here for just playing both. Because, of course, you need double colourless energy for both of them. You need the EV from Sun and Moon for both of them. And you could play a mixture of dark and psychic energy, although then you might end up running into the wrong energy at the wrong time, and that would be super annoying. You could make them friends, they could play together, and as I kind of intimated earlier, they are a pair in Pokken Tournament at the moment. Could they be a pair in the Pokemon trading card game? Well, here's the biggest issue with that problem. Espeon has a great partner. It's Garbodor. Garbodor is a Stage 1 Pokemon that either blocks abilities with this Garbodor, or does a whole bunch of damage dependent on the items in the discard pile with this Garbodor. Which means that if you're playing Espeon GX, surely you could just use Garbodor, and then you come in and evolve later on in the game, potentially, to get those KOs after doing a bunch of damage with Garbodor and a bunch of damage with Espeon. If you want Umbreon to have his own partners, I don't really know what you have at the moment. Speed Darkrai's pretty good. But why would you not just play Speed Darkrai? Now, the one thing I will tell you is that we've actually got Umbreon EX as well. Now, Umbreon EX, for a single colourless energy, discard as many cards as you like from your hand, then draw that many cards. And this does have a little bit of synergy with the Speed Dark decks, because you need to discard Darkrai GX to use his Resurrect ability. And you need to discard Dark Energy so that when Darkrai resurrects, he gets an energy attached to him. And Veil of Darkness on Umbreon EX does allow you to do that. And while we're talking Umbreon EX, how about Endgame? Dark double colourless, same cost as we're used to be using on these evolutions. 70 damage, but if you get to KO a Mega Pokemon using this, you take 4 prize cards, 2 for KOing the Mega, plus 2 extra. Here's my problem. Who's playing Mega Pokemon at the moment? Like, literally, who is playing any Mega deck at the moment? Because I keep a very, very close eye on tournament reports. And I don't remember seeing a Mega deck cut since the rotation. Mega decks are bad right now. And that's a slight issue when Umbreon EX comes in. So I suppose if we're looking at EXs, Espeon EX has a great attack and is teched into a huge amount of decks for the devolving power. Umbreon EX is basically good against Mega decks which aren't out at the moment. So if we're picking just between the EXs, Espeon wins by a country mile. If we're picking between the GXs, things get a little bit more confusing. Umbreon GX has really good attacks and spreads damage around a lot better, but Espeon GX has better partners. I think taken in a vacuum, I might be inclined to say that Umbreon is a better attacker, but we're not taking it in a vacuum. We are looking at the partners, and Espeon, when partnered with Garbodor, is great. It's not a coincidence, by the way, before you all come back at me in the comments. Name me another Espeon deck other than Espeon Garbodor. I'm not sure there is another good deck. So, it depends how you look at it. From a raw standpoint, Umbreon might be the better card, and Mark Lutz did make cut at London Internationals using Umbreon early in last season. Just using it as a bit of an energy denial deck with crushing hammers, etc. As a deck on its own, Umbreon's had the most success. But Espeon's got the better partners. And I suppose while we're here, before we give our final verdict, might I remind you that we do have a promo Umbreon, a non-EX, non-GX Umbreon, that is still legal in the Pokemon trading card game. We have this one. Now, if we're talking artwork, call the fight. It's over. None of the cards I featured in this video are as beautiful as this Umbreon, which might have some of the very best artwork in the entire X and Y block. In terms of attacks, however, 30 damage for a dark and colourless not affected by resistance is meh. And things like Gardevoir will resist it, but still meh. And Lunatic Scent I quite like, partly for the lunar pun, partly because dark double colourless 120 damage if you turn up a face down prize card and it's a Pokemon. 120 for a dark double colourless is really nice, but you've got to turn up a face down prize card, so you can't use Town Map to cheat, and it's only 120 if you hit a Pokemon. That is way too unreliable, ladies and gentlemen. And it doesn't have an attack for a single Dark Energy, whereas Umbreon GX does. Overall, I've got to give the verdict to Espeon. I don't want to give the verdict to Espeon. Umbreon is my boy. Umbreon is my favourite of the evolutions. But the EX is much better, and when we look at Dex as a whole rather than just the card, there is no question that at the moment, in terms of how it's being used and the decks in which we can use it, Espeon GX is better than Umbreon GX. I'm sorry, that is my verdict. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, arguments in the comments. I would love to hear them. Go nuts, be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you would like to support the channel and get some bonus pods, and there was a bonus podcast uploaded just yesterday, you can do so at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.